This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1727, Captain Marvel movie review.
I'm Adam Murdo.
And I'm Ian Levinstein. I'm going to play just a little longer. The joys of being the producer.
I mean, I am a huge 80s song fan. I mean, I grew up in the 80s. That was my teenage years and all that. But there's a lot of 90s that I like. And this movie hit just about every favorite song of that whole top 40 pop rock kind of stuff that I loved. And that is one of them. I absolutely love Gwen Stacy, and no doubt. Gwen Stacy. Oh my God. And Gwen Stefani.
You hit it dead on the nose there.
Yeah, I sure did.
Well, welcome everyone to the show. And in case you did not hear there, we got Shane. Yay, Shane.
Yay.
Yay. Good to have you back, buddy.
It's been a coon's age.
Well, glad to have you back for this one. And
how.
And how, indeed. Mr. Eberly will be joining us about 20 minutes into the episode, so we'll get his thoughts on Captain Marvel as the show goes forward. But, of course, in the words of Mr. Pantalones, there will be spoilers, so, what did he used to say? Forewarned is forewarned?
Forearmed. Forewarned is forearmed. Forewarned is forearmed.
There you go. Yes, forewarned is forearmed. Spoilers out the wazoo for this episode. So if you have not seen Captain Marvel, go ahead and pause it now and get back to us. I feel like we should start with you, Shane, since it's been so long.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
How many times have you seen it, and what'd you think?
I've only seen it once. I want to definitely go see it again. I saw it Saturday morning with my boys. I love that they get into seeing all these Marvel movies. Some of the DC ones I got to talk them into a little bit, and sometimes it's one or the other. And in those cases, sometimes they get to see those twice right away. But the Marvel ones, they're usually very excited to go see. So 10 o'clock Saturday morning, we ran off to the movie theater and saw it. I actually only ordered tickets like 4 days before because I forgot. I thought it was the next week that it comes out.
Only 4 days before.
Thank goodness I got tickets in the theater I wanted, the showing I wanted. We were a little bit further back and we were off to the side, but it still was fine. I didn't mind at all. But yeah, I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I can't figure out all the people that don't like it or say that it's mediocre to less. I don't get that. I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and there's certainly plenty of things I don't like that people love. But yeah, some of these Marvel ones, I'm surprised when people don't like certain ones, and this is one of them. I thought it was fun.
Well, if you want to hear a little bit more of a towards that direction, I did put out an episode of Comic Timing on Sunday with Mr. Brent Cassina, who very much has a negative opinion on the movie. While Chris was a little bit more lukewarm about it, Raph liked it but had issues. And I'm going to say my general opinion of it. And mind you, I'm literally coming off of 15 minutes ago. I just got back from my second showing. I had a break and I was able to see it. And this time was at the Alamo Draft House, my favorite place to see a movie because people shut the hell up. And I actually ordered as my dinner tonight. They had a special pizza on the menu called the Binary Brie Pizza.
Ooh.
It was a
binary brie, huh?
Yep, binary brie, a brie cheese spread made with caramelized onions, garlics, and herbs, topped with sliced pears, bacon, blue cheese, arugula, and pickled onions.
Arugula.
Whoever put that together knows their way not only around pizza, but also around comics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Binary being kind of a deep-cut Carol Danvers reference.
Significantly so, yeah.
And arugula, it's a vegetable.
most very much so, yes.
I love My Blue Heaven too, that Steve Martin movie, but that's totally another discussion.
The first time I saw it, I enjoyed it, but I came away feeling that it was of an ancillary degree, as in along the same lines of something like a Rogue One. Because it's a prequel, you could go into this. You can go into Endgame not having seen this movie and be perfectly okay. You know,
Sure.
Like if she just showed up there after seeing the the pager after from that end credit scene in Infinity War, you'd still know who it was because this must be the person that Nick Fury was trying to get.
Yeah.
But overall, I did enjoy the movie, and I actually enjoyed it a lot more the second time around. Probably because I knew what my expectations were, and it suited me well to have to worry less about surprises and more about just sitting there and watching the movie.
I guess that's part of my thing is that I go into these things, any comic book movie, DC, Marvel, other, whatever. I go into them with the expectation to enjoy seeing characters on a big screen that I never, ever thought I'd ever see.
Yep.
And that's where my expectations stop.
Exactly. Yeah, that's around where I am as well, for the most part. Mr. Murdo, thoughts?
Well, Ian, I did see your announcement on Facebook a couple of days ago of the release of that Comic Timing episode in which you and the boys reviewed the movie. And you mentioned that Brent was the one who liked it least, as if it was just a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to listen to that episode to hear you guys talk about that. I think I'm probably going to come down somewhere on the Chris or Raph end of the scale.
Okay.
On Comic Geek Speak, I'm usually the one who enjoys any given film a little less than everybody else in the discussion.
Right.
So, yeah, like Raph, in general, I liked it, especially like the first act or two. There are a couple of creative decisions with which I do take issue, which kind of marred my enjoyment of the film as a whole.
Sure.
But it was, there was a lot of action. It was well paced. Kept you on the edge of your seat. It's not a clock watching kind of movie. I enjoyed the portrayal of the Kree Empire, both visually and conceptually. It was spot on. The Skrulls, a little bit less so, which is one of the aforementioned issues to which we'll return a little bit later on. But it was still cool to see them finally on the big screen in a Marvel movie. The characters. There were some interesting ones in there, and Carol Danvers certainly not the least of them. It was good to see a younger Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury.
Yep.
And the interplay between the two of them is like a good quality buddy cop film.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It felt like different things at different times to me, this movie. It went through a couple of evolutions. Like at the beginning, it felt like an unusually well-made and high-budgeted Sci-Fi Channel original series. Then it became a unusually good 90s action/buddy cop film. And by the end, well, it became something else that I'll get into in more detail later on. But although I don't regret having seen it, it was good. I didn't even really consider it as another step on the road to Avengers Endgame. I didn't really contextualize it as a chapter in the ongoing saga of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But you're absolutely right that this is a movie you don't really need to see before you go to see Avengers Endgame. Nothing happens in this movie that's really essential to know to go in to enjoy that next film.
Right.
So in that regard, it's really kind of it doesn't even bear analysis. But just as a fun action movie with a couple of positive messages to share, I thought it was pretty good. I don't really feel the urge to see it a second time, though.
Understood. Yeah. I will say I did appreciate how the movie started off. That they just, that we didn't start off with, the origin. That we get more of, that memory flash, and then we're thrown straight into the Kree portion of the movie. I think that was a smart decision to sort of piecemeal it the way they did.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't need an origin right up front. I was happy to let it evolve naturally through the movie, or at least more naturally than just sticking it all in the front.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. This is a fairly innovative way to get out around the standard fan complaint of the cookie-cutter origin sequence that appears in so many of these superhero movies.
Exactly.
And they did so by taking the standard superhero origin sequence, turning it inside out, and teasing it out to us piecemeal, almost like Memento style over the course of the first half or two-thirds of the movie, so that Carol is kind of learning her origin along with the rest of us.
Yeah.
One thing I do regret about that, though, is that we don't get a more complete picture of Carol's formative years on Earth, because the little glimpses we get kind of make it look like she had a really crappy life here on Earth.
Yeah, had a crappy childhood. That's what I took out of that too.
Seems like the only real bright spot she had were her friendship with Maria Rambeau, her tutelage under Dr. Wendy Lawson, and the experience of flying planes.
Plus, we see scenes with her brother, or at least that's who I assumed it was.
Oh, yeah, there's Stevie, yeah.
Yeah.
But those two are kind of a bittersweet memory because, they tie into how she was given, how she was discriminated against even by members of her own family.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And this movie plays significantly off of the Kelly Sue DeConnick stuff, which I expected. To the point where I don't know if you guys caught the Kelly Sue DeConnick cameo. But
no, I didn't.
She actually appeared in the movie?
She did, yes. When Carol is getting off the train, one of the women that she bumps into is Kelly Sue. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment. Which I didn't even catch the first time that I saw it, but I knew about it, and then there I was catching it the second time around. But Kelly Sue has a very noticeable her hair is noticeably red, and it's very easy to spot when you actually know what you're looking for.
Right, which is the problem here because I have no idea what Kelly Sue DeConnick looks like.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some video interviews with her, and I think she was on one or two panels that I was at comic conventions, and that's kind of the only reason why I would have even recognized her in the first place.
That's cool.
Yeah. Plus, we have to mention the Force Stan.
God, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Not only the whole Marvel logo, which seemed to me to be every cameo he's ever had.
Mm-hmm. And then some. But I also love his actual cameo in the movie where it looks like he's playing himself.
Yeah.
He's rehearsing his lines for Kevin Smith's Mallrats.
I think I was the only one in the theater that laughed at that.
I had laughter in my theater both times that I saw it. However, one thing that at least, friends of mine were pointing out to me is that it does create a little bit of an issue since considering how many cameos he's had as other people, now he's showing up as Stan.
Well, to me, that just shows not because he has sadly passed away,
sure,
but just that him being the Watcher, or at least a Watcher-like being from a few movies ago,
right?
That just means that he is Stan as well as everything else under the sun in all the movies he's appeared in.
Sure. Yeah.
I didn't take it as now it creates a problem. I just thought, oh, well, that's cool. That's why he's so good at being Stan Lee and creating this world, even though he's in the world that he helped create.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair enough there. Even if also it does create a little bit of a timeline issue, even with when he would have been filming it, just because Mallrats came out in October of '95. And chances are he probably would have filmed it already.
Right.
But who cares? It's still it's a Stan moment.
Quite nitpick it that way. But yeah.
And Kevin Smith, apparently he left the showing in tears.
Yeah, I read that too.
Yeah, which just brought me emotional to say the least. Just knowing the impact that Stan had on him throughout his life, and just being there for that. So
I would just love to be a fly on the wall and someone say, hey, you know what? Since this is in the 90s, let's do this. And I watched the whole thing gestate, and then because Kevin Smith didn't know it, right? He didn't know what the cameo was about until it was in the theater.
Yeah, he didn't know it all. Yeah,
that's just awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I will say that some of the 90s references worked and others didn't for me. They some of the music choices actually didn't quite connect. And actually, funny enough, the one that I played at the beginning of this episode, I'm Just a Girl, that fight scene didn't exactly work for me with I'm Just a Girl. I think that, in fact, actually, if they had switched Celebrity Skin and I'm Just a Girl, I almost feel like it would have flowed a little bit better. And just had I'm Just a Girl be the credits music and have Celebrity Skin there for for the fight scene, because the tempo of I'm Just a Girl is very hard to work with for a fight scene. But I don't know if you guys agree or disagree with that.
Makes good sense to me. Plus, I'm Just a Girl makes for better walk-out music over the credits.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I didn't mind it, but I'd like to try and listen to the other one sometime while watching it down the road and see what I think it might have sounded like that way.
Yeah. No, that's true, and that's what YouTube is for.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm sure somebody's going to try eventually.
I mean, part of that is when it comes to any movie that throws in references like that I try to pick up on. I get excited that it's just something that I like or that I was hoping would be in it. Not that I thought that I did sort of think that song would be in it somewhere.
Right.
That I just get excited at that moment. I watch it, I enjoy it, and then maybe down the road I'll be like, oh, something else could have been better. But I'm not there yet. I'm still like, oh, well, I thought that song might be appropriate in the movie somewhere. They put it in here. It was fun to watch. And okay, I'm good.
Yeah. But like using "Come as You Are" as diegetic music, also like I'm just going to assume that she heard that on the radio at some point while she was around, because that's 1992, and she disappeared in '89.
Yeah.
It's a great song, don't get me wrong, but you know, I'm just gonna have to guess that she heard it on the radio when they were driving to, you know, one of the places they did during the movie, and she liked it that much that she imagined it on a record.
Right, because she might not have had a CD player or a cassette deck before she was abducted.
Exactly. Yeah, since it was '89. But I definitely related to the computer loading up that CD. I was having dangerous flashbacks there.
Oh my God. I laughed. There were a couple people that laughed, but not many. So I don't know if I was just one of the few of the age group that would understand that, or if nobody else found it funny, but I did. I thought, oh my God, this is exactly what it's like. What's it doing? Loading. Yep, that's about the size of it.
I felt like the actors in that scene should have all been nominated for Oscars just on the strength of their ability to act like this is normal in 2019.
Oh my God, yeah. And like I could almost hear the elevator music in my head too as they were watching that spinning ball. Same with the internet disconnecting when she was at that internet cafe.
Yep, and the screech. Oh.
I could almost hear, "Mom, get off the phone."
Yep. God, it used to take 30, 40 minutes to get online sometimes. Ay.
Yeah. So there were definitely changes in this from the comics, which you fully expect in a cinematic version of a Marvel property. Some of the major ones being, you know, the Skrulls being a much more sympathetic race.
That surprised me. Yeah.
However, considering we see them at war as well, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, all Skrulls are peaceful, and we could still easily have, you know, secret invasion level Skrulls down the road.
Sure.
Well, one hopes.
Yeah. But I didn't mind it. It was one of those surprises that took me off guard, but in a good way. I felt like for this movie. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that, Murd.
It took me off guard in rather a negative way.
Okay.
This is actually one of the things I least liked about the movie. Now, as far as the visual presentation of the Skrulls, that was pretty darn strong.
Yeah.
It was cool in the early scenes when we were still assuming that the Skrulls were the quote-unquote bad guys.
Yeah.
You know, insofar as there can be any bad guys in a war, and especially a war like the Kree Skrull War. But yeah, they looked good. And those chin furrows of theirs were on point. I do think it would have been nice if they could have somehow worked the skull caps into their military uniforms. I kind of expect to see those when I see Skrulls. And I thought it was cool that there are apparently at least two different base physical types for the Skrulls. I was on board that ship where Carol was being held captive. There were the full-size Skrulls and the little sort of dwarven Skrulls that are acting as like laboratory assistants.
Yep.
And they looked a little bit more like the Skrulls did when they made their first appearance back in Fantastic Four #2 in 1961. Skrulls used to be portrayed as a lot shorter. It was also a little strange hearing them speak with Australian accents, but
that was strange. Yeah.
Well,
never the way I heard them in my head.
You can easily just put that down to, I guess that's what Skrull translates to with the Universal Translator, is Australian.
Fair enough.
But I loved Ben Mendelsohn. Just his portrayal in general. And that led to one of the reasons that I actually appreciated the swerve, is because Ben Mendelsohn almost always plays a bad guy.
Oh yes,
yeah.
That's when he was on. I thought, oh, here he is again, playing a jerk, playing the bad guy. I'm gonna hate him by the end of the movie and hope somebody knocks him over.
Yep.
What else has he been in that I might recognize him from? This is the first I've ever heard the name.
Well, he was in Ready Player One as Nolan Sorrento.
Oh, all right. Yeah, we went to see that together.
Yep.
And he was in Rogue One as oh my God, his name's blanking on.
Orson Krennic.
Krennic. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. And Krennic was the essentially the head bad guy of Rogue One.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have seen him all over the place. He just never made note of the name, I guess.
Yeah.
Plus, he was apparently in The Dark Knight Rises as Daggett.
Yes, he was. Yes, That's right. That's the first time I ever saw him.
Yep. So
just about that.
One of those career bad guys, basically. And that's why, I mean, just like when what Shane said, when I first saw him, I'm like, oh, I know what Ben Mendelsohn's going to be in this. And, then he took that swerve, especially with the milkshake.
Yeah. And at first, I wasn't sure that it was him in that scene when he's sipping on it. It took a second because in most movies I've seen him in, he doesn't have his accent.
Right.
He talks in an American English accent, not his Australian accent.
Yeah. And in here we see him use both, because when he's impersonating the head, at least the head of that specific department of S.H.I.E.L.D. As Keller, he's using his American accent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can understand why it wouldn't work for you, Mer, just because of how the Skrulls, typically are portrayed. It's just I don't know. For me, I felt like it humanized them a little bit.
Well, it humanized them a little too much for my money, and that's the thing. I have no problem with their making the Skrulls a little sympathetic, maybe demonstrating that the Skrulls have some justification for their constant attacks on Kree holdings, but to just so completely turn them into the innocent victims, the disenfranchised refugees, and that scene on board Wendy Lawson's outer space laboratory when all the Skrulls' children come running in, I was like, ugh. I'm suddenly watching. I mentioned that the movie had morphed into something else by the end. That something else was a season 4 episode of Supergirl.
Oh boy!
And I do not intend that as a compliment.
I thought that a bit odd too, because to me they're just as ruthless as anything that I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
And I don't mind that maybe that little group of them being refugees and trying to hide out could be sympathetic, but they seem to go from maniacal overlord to dislocated tribe of people. It didn't work for me either at first. I thought it was too easy for them to be impersonating everybody, taking over places and trying to get to do whatever they were going to do, even though it just ended up being to try and find their all of their families.
Right.
To being so likable, it was almost too much of a dichotomy.
Right. Twist was a little bit too sudden and too sharp.
But I got over it. It was fine, but it did seem weird once they got onto that ship.
Well, the way I painted it is, even for soldiers, soldiers have many facets, and as we've seen in war movies elsewhere, that there are those that have to shut off a part of themselves in order to be a part of battle, knowing that they're doing it for quote unquote the greater good. And in that way, it made Talos multifaceted for me. It made him a general who was willing to do whatever it took to win the battle, while at the same time then you see exactly what he was fighting for. And in this instance, he was fighting to reunite himself with his family and to try and to get that part of his life back. I can understand that maybe they could have perhaps executed that a little bit stronger, but I felt like we got the full Telos once he was on Earth, in New Orleans, and explained himself a little bit further.
And that's okay. I didn't mind that part as much. I almost would have been a little bit more satisfied if for that part alone, if they would have just gone to the ship, found the power source, and then she helped them get to where everybody was hiding out, rather than just all of them hiding out for years on the ship.
Yeah.
Yep. I think you hit on something with which I can strongly agree in a few minutes ago when you said how it would have been okay if we could have just – if the filmmakers had gone a little further and shown us that these particular Skrulls, Talos and his band, were kind of like renegades against the Skrull Empire in much the same way that Carol is becoming a renegade against the Kree Empire.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to have the entire Skrull race apparently painted as just like the remnants of a society victimized by the jackbooted Kree, that I didn't like that idea. Just be such a, well, as Shane put it, a sharp dichotomy between blacks and whites, good guys and bad guys, imperialist oppressors and innocent victims. Yeah, and you mentioned the secret invasion story and the many other things that Marvel could still do cinematically with the Skrulls. I mean, it's going to be somewhat hampered if they're all just cute, cuddly, sympathetic, displaced refugees.
Sure.
Yeah. It seemed like for what was happening from the Kree's perspective, the Skrulls would be so weak as a race that they would have been wiped out a long time ago if that's the case.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough, and that is also why I believe that there is more to the story of the Skrulls, even from what Telos has told us, because that he paints them as innocent, but it doesn't also necessarily mean they're all innocent.
Yeah, and that's from his perspective with the information that we're getting handed from him. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Carol Danvers may learn something to that effect in her next movie, for all we know.
Yeah. It's very possible. We are now joined by Mr. Chris Eberly.
Gentlemen.
Oh, for God's sake.
First of all, I wanted to state right now, for the record, I believe in Shane Kelly.
Clap your hands if you believe, children.
Gentlemen, this is a tonic for the spirit right now.
Welcome to the show, Chris. We were just discussing the basic nuts and bolts of the movie. So we can just
we were about 2 minutes away from wrapping it up.
Oh yeah, no. So that's it, everybody. Thanks for joining us. You could go ahead and give your initial impressions on the movie.
Sure. Before I do, just a quick sum up. What did you guys think of it?
I enjoyed it. Shane enjoyed it. Adam a little bit less so.
Yep, I was totally on board for about the first half, and then some questionable creative decisions started to come up.
Murd, I had a hunch you might have an issue with certain things they did in that film.
Yep, you know me well, Chris.
Yes. Shane, it's damn good to hear your voice, my friend.
Thanks, you too.
Damn good. Okay, so here's what I'll say. I really enjoyed it. Now, when we do our long promised top 5 MCU movies after Avengers Endgame, this movie will not be in my top 5.
No, it won't be in my top 5 either.
Same here.
Yeah.
So I have, and I don't mean this as a negative, because overall I really enjoyed the film. I have mixed feelings about it. Overall, I thought it was well done. I really enjoyed her performance, and what I especially enjoyed was the chemistry she had with Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes.
That for me was really the highlight of the film. What I dug about the movie was that they're taking on a very difficult subject. That Carol Danvers' history is so complicated in the comic book, and I like how they really took the whole notion of her memory being fragmented, which we know from the comic involves Rogue and a lot of other things, and they kind of put an interesting twist, and I thought worked in the film. And I enjoyed how they tried, they made an effort to bring in that very vital aspect of her character arc from the source material. Mm-hmm. This movie was – I thought this movie was – overall was fun. I don't know. I've struggled with it a little bit since seeing it, and I definitely want to see it again.
Chris, as someone who, as somebody who literally saw it for the second time about 20 minutes before we started recording.
Oh, terrific!
I will say I enjoyed it a lot more on the second viewing that I did on the first. Once my expectations were met, and I was a little bit, the surprises were less surprising. I could just watch the movie as is, and I hope that's the case with you.
Well, and again, I really enjoyed the film. I didn't think it was great. Mm-hmm. The way they use the scrolls in the movie, it was great to see scrolls. Number one, the makeup was fantastic, mm-hmm. and them transforming. I thought from the standpoint of just enjoying the movie, like the way they use them as refugees rather than as an imperial rival to the Kree, was fun. Would I have preferred that they keep the scrolls as they really were in the comic? Maybe so, or maybe establish that these scrolls are kind of like refugees from their own imperium, so to speak. I love Jude Law as Jan Rog. In fact, I was fooled. I thought Jude Law was going to be Mar-Vell.
Yes.
So did I.
Yeah.
And
that makes all of us then.
Yeah, and which would have made sense, but I did like how they used him as Jan Rog. Now, here's where I'm back and forth on the Annette Bening role. I love Annette Bening. She's one of my all-time favorite actresses. I'm always happy to see her in anything because she's always tremendous. And what I did like was how they maintain that, and this goes right to the comic, that the Marvel character turns against the imperial ways of the Kree to serve a higher calling, a higher purpose. Mm-hmm. And I liked how they brought their version of it into the film. They called her Lawson, and in a way, Carol gains her powers from Mar-Vell just in a different way than in the comic. Mm-hmm. I liked how they did all that. See, part of it, I struggle because part of it is because I'm such a fan of the books, and there's a part of me that likes to see them be as faithful as they can within reason. Yeah. Because they can't do everything faithfully, because in some cases that would be absurd. To the book, so do they need to change the gender of Mar-Vell? Probably not, but it's Annette Bening, so I really didn't mind. I liked how they used the Rambos. I liked how they have Monica Rambeau and there's a little girl, because they could actually set her up as being – because years have passed since this story into the present movies, and she could be like a new version of Captain Marvel, which would be great. So I kind of think they kind of left room for that if necessary. I really enjoyed it. I mean, the cat stuff was just funny, and
oh my god, that was hilarious.
I mean, one of my students in class is like, he thought it was lame that Nick Fury lost his eye that way.
I would actually agree with that individual. I need to touch
I would agree with that too. I thought it was just going to be where he got the scars from, not that he lost his whole eye.
Yeah.
I thought that was goofy, but overall, just I think what they were trying to do is they were trying to give Nick Fury more of a role in the story and kind of, for lack of a better term, humanize him to some degree. Yeah. And show what he's like early on. Go ahead, Shane. I'm sorry.
Well, and really show him being there at the beginning.
Exactly. Great to see Coulson. He was pitch perfect as always. The de-aging effects looked great on both of them. I love the actor. I forgot his name. He usually plays a villain who played the leader of the Skrulls. Yeah. I thought he was fantastic.
We were just talking about that. Ben Mendelsohn. Yep.
Yeah, he's excellent in everything he's in. Like he played the creepy industrialist in
Ready Player One.
Dark Knight Rises. Yep. He's a great actor. So I really enjoyed his performance. It was an interesting take on the Skrulls. Again, I just going into a movie, I got a kick out of it. But again, the comic part of me is like, all right, but it's the Skrulls. But I so enjoyed his performance that it didn't really bother me that much. I'm interested to hear Murd's take on that, actually, because when I saw that, I thought, I don't think Murd's going to like this.
You actually joined us just as I was about finished expounding that, Chris. But my attitude is that the Skrulls were better left imperialist, and we actually did hit on the idea that maybe this little faction of Skrulls is more sympathetic than most, and that they're renegades against their Imperium, just as Danvers is against the Kree.
Which what I was thinking, as I said before, and that could be an interesting plot device itself. Now, what I liked I really enjoyed the way they approached the Supreme Intelligence. That you're not going to have a big gelatinous green head with dreads. That's not going to work. In a film. Yeah. So I liked how, they kind of plug into it and they're going into this, this virtual reality, so to speak. And, you see like everybody has a different interpretation of the Supreme Intelligence, which I thought was interesting. And again, Annette Bening is a great actress, so I was totally on board with that. What I really thought they did very well was the look of the Kree. Like the soldiers with their helmets, like all of that was with some modifications, was all right out of the comic. Basically. And Murd, isn't Minerva a character from Captain Marvel?
Oh, yes, actually. Dr. Minerva. She was actually – she dates all the way back to the original 70s Marvel
That's
run.
What I thought. Okay.
And she eventually had a relationship with another Kree soldier named Captain Atlas, who also appeared as a member of Star Force.
Okay. All right.
I thought so. Thank you for confirming that, because I knew I recognized her name. It was interesting they didn't. I thought they would have taken a moment to explain why some Kree are white and some are blue, which I don't think they did.
No, not at all. I guess they probably figured there was enough identity politics in this film to begin with, so they leave that for the sequel. The whole skin color caste system.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed, as the lead, I really enjoyed her performance. I thought she really nailed. The chutzpah of Carol Danvers, the will of Carol Danvers, and sort of the edge of the character. Like her exchanges with Fury, I thought were great. Like I really that was my favorite part of the movie, was the rapport that developed between the two of them. It was. I thought it was a solid opening salvo for the character. I'm thrilled there is a Captain Marvel movie. I'm thrilled that that they're bringing Carol Danvers, who's such a really important character, into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I really look forward to seeing how they're going to use her in the inevitable final confrontation with Thanos.
Yeah.
And what I really also enjoyed was they showed how powerful she is at the end of the film. I mean, I was watching the movie and I'm like Jan Rog thinks he has a chance.
Right.
Like he thinks his little ray gun is going to stop her now. I mean, come on, like that. I like how I loved how they brought in the atmospheric helmet that wraps around her head, and visually, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like I really enjoyed, the cosmic aspects of it. Again, there were some creative decisions. Maybe I would have liked this to see gone a bit of a different way, but overall, I thought it was a solid. Again, opening salvo for the character. I don't think it was as strong as a first movie as like Iron Man, for example.
Well, I was going to say, Chris, if you were to put this in the middle of Phase 1, I'd say it is approaching as good a movie as Captain America. It's like back and forth with that. Iron Man is definitely better. It's way better than Thor. Just in execution and in character building and development. So
I think Murd and I would distree, Ian, if I may speak for you a moment, because we both love the original Thor film.
You do so accurately, Chris.
Yeah. I enjoy it as well. There really is no Marvel movie that I 100% despise.
Oh no, absolutely not.
But the first Thor is pretty low on my totem pole.
Yeah, it's all up to personal preference and what you enjoy out of these movies. With this, I think that they were trying to cement her base in the universe and try to make her matter before Endgame. And
I think matter because not only of what she's going to do in Endgame, but for the next phase as well.
Yes, definitely. And in doing so, they had to make some rigmarole decisions that may or may not work depending on your opinion, but they gave it a shot, and that happens with any prequel, as we're well aware. As somebody who's seen Star Wars prequels happen, and some of them were great, and others were Rogue One. Others were not so great, and others were Rogue One, as in, I enjoy Rogue One.
Yeah, I was wondering where you're going. I was like,
I know.
Yeah,
please,
I thought, God, I love Rogue One.
And there's plenty of I've met plenty of people who actually do not enjoy Rogue One and think that
I
it's.
know, I don't get that either.
Yeah, but
anyway.
it just depends on how much you see this as ancillary and how much you just enjoy the movie for what it is.
Yeah.
Because as I said before you joined, Chris, this is the type of movie that if you hadn't seen and you go to see Endgame, you're still going to know who Captain Marvel is because they're going to say her name at least once in the movie.
And I concur wholeheartedly in that they needed to establish her presence in the universe, and also just again how incredibly powerful she is.
Yeah, and
you have to assume she's going to play a key role. Because why else would they put this? Make sure they got this movie out ahead of time.
Yeah,
in the climax of Avengers Endgame.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
I really dug it. I think just the writing wasn't quite as strong for me as in some of the other like origin type movies. The Stanley cameo was one of his best ever.
Yeah.
I was howling when with that cameo with the Mallrats script. And I love the tribute to him at the beginning of the movie. I thought that was very well done. So, yeah, but again, for me, I thought she was really good in the role. Like I believe she was Carol Danvers.
Yeah.
And that's, for me, that really was the most important thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing how she, interprets the character going forward. What'd you guys think of how they kind of brought in their own way her issues with memory and so forth?
I liked it. Now, I know some things about Ms. Marvel and Captain Marvel and all that, but I don't know a whole lot. So I came in a little bit less informed of the character and what could or could not happen, more so than I did other Marvel movies when I would go in and not know everything, but I knew enough. This one I knew less. So I didn't mind it. I read up on it a little bit later, just on quick searches on the web. So I enjoyed the way they presented it in the movie. I thought it worked for the way they changed things to fit the cinematic universe. I thought it worked well, and I had no problem with it.
Yeah. Like you were saying earlier, Chris, it does a good job of bridging what is essentially the two origins of Carol Danvers. It gave us her getting her abilities, via accident, and it also gave us the loss of the memories. And I absolutely freaking love, especially after our last episode where we were talking about it in the 90s, just how important that leather jacket is to her. Yeah. Because the minute she put that on, I'm thinking to myself, all right, there's her Avengers jacket right there.
Yep.
And it's also in some ways, I don't know whether they intended this or not, a sly reference to Rogue and her 90s outfit.
Yep. Gotta think about it. That's a good possibility.
Yeah. So it just overall that was a really cool extra touch there, and I think they did a very good job of using that and memory in general, especially with the way that when she was in that machine, the way we saw her memories and the way that they were like, go back, do that again. That worked extremely well for me.
What did you think of how they did that, Murd? The whole memory approach.
Yeah. It was an effective device. It helped us to circumvent those origin story blues, and it neatly tied in the mystery of her background, and in with the other key mystery of the movie, which was Dr. Lawson and her light-speed engine.
Yep, definitely.
So what did you fellas think about the way they interpreted Marvel and Annette Bening's performance?
I thought I would dislike it. I thought I would until I really started thinking about it. And actually, even for the way that it was portrayed in the movie itself, I think that it didn't really bother me. It was a good swerve just because I was not just like everybody else. I hadn't heard that Jude Law was going to be a villain because I know that some people had. But that was not.
I did not. Yeah. I thought he was Marvel all the way.
Yeah, exactly. And when it turned out that that Marvel was Lawson, I was perfectly okay with it because I knew that we couldn't have an established character like Marvel in the cinematic universe the way that it was originally portrayed. Or else we would have had to set this movie in the 70s and it would have been about Marvel.
Yeah.
And if you know the comic history, the minute they called her Lawson, I said, "Oh, that's Marvel."
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I didn't go that way. I wasn't sure.
Yep. As soon as I heard Dr. Wendy Lawson, and as opposed to the Walter Lawson alias that he used in the comics.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
What'd you think of the way they did that, Murd?
Well, it bothered me quite a bit more than it apparently bothered Ian, because actually the name Wendy Lawson was the first knell of displeasure that sounded in my viewing experience. Now, part of my issue with this portrayal of Mar-Vell is just your basic knee-jerk fanish reactionism. You can't change anything from my comics and expect me to be okay of it. Blah blah blah. I'm more susceptible than most to that, actually. But let me say first of all, I was upset that Mar-Vell, of whatever gender they portray the characters belonging to, had such a small role in the film that he or she was relegated to just like a mentor role or a retroactive post-mortem position in the film. I was really expecting that Mar-Vell would actually work a little bit more with Carol Danvers. And I suppose, in a way, she did. Yeah. It's just that we didn't get to see very much of their relationship with each other.
Yeah.
She just was basically relegated to the role of the deceased scientist, a common character or stock character in Golden Age superhero stories, the genius scientist who invents an amazing new empowering invention, a chemical or a machine or something, and then is killed by enemy agents before he gets to use it, and then the heroic character takes it over and puts on a mask and starts using it to fight crime. That's basically what Mar-Vell is doing in this movie.
And in that way, Murd, it reminds me a little bit of Monica Rambeau's origin that we recently reread.
Oh yes, the scientist, right. An old friend of her father's, who died shortly after.
Yep.
Just lived just long enough to see to it that Monica received her powers and then was shown the door.
Yeah.
From this mortal coil. So it would have been nice if Mar-Vell, male or female, could have fought back to back with Carol a little bit. I thought there'd be more of like a symbolic legacy torch passing thing happening, which is another reason to be disappointed, I think, that Jude Law's character did not turn out to be Mar-Vell. I mean, he didn't have to survive to see the end of this movie. He could have possibly rebelled against the Kree Empire at about the same time that Carol did. It could be that they could have written it differently so that Jan Rog could have been portrayed by a different actor, and Jude Law's character could have been the more virtuous Mar-Vell. It could have been Jan Rog that found and abducted the amnesiac Carol to the Kree Empire, and then Mar-Vell could have taken her under his wing and trained her in the ways of Kree martial arts and been her superior officer in the Star Force, and the two of them could have turned against the Imperium together, and Mar-Vell could have been slain. So there's a way they still could have made that work. Mm-hmm. But to do it this way, well, I'm disappointed that Mar-Vell was not a greater presence in the story. Now, as far as the cross-casting, and I'm certainly not going to take anything away from Annette Bening's performance here, but the meaning of the gender bend to which they subjected the character here. Now, the message that I received from this, and you guys may have seen this entirely differently, the message I received may not have been the same one the filmmakers were trying to send, but what I get out of the decision to make Mar-Vell a woman is that someone somewhere seems to think that it's impossible for a woman to be truly empowered if she's in any way indebted to a man, even as far as like a mentorship relationship, or like it would reduce her or diminish her in some way if she had learned anything about how to be a pilot or how to be a scientist or how to be a warrior from someone other than a fellow woman. And that I find that implication that you're nothing more than a daddy's girl if you learned something from a man to be not only ridiculous but a little bit insulting. I mean, and looking at the other men in Carol's life, I don't think until she encountered Nick Fury and Coulson, I don't think this cinematic version of Carol Danvers had a single positive male figure in her entire life. Closest thing to it would have been Jan Rog, and it turns out he's the one who killed her mentor, Dr. Wendy Lawson, and then abducted her and brainwashed her and submitted her to power dampening to prevent her from becoming her full self. So, and her own father, gave her brothers preferential treatment over her, tried to hold her back, obstruct her. Everybody she encountered during her Air Force training did much the same thing. It bothers me that this version of Carol Danvers seems to have no positive, supportive male figures in her entire life. And it just seems to me that a male Mar-Vell might have done that. But if filmmakers decided that they needed to go in the direction that they did, and I can't say that I approve.
See, now I took it just a little bit different, where it was somewhat more of a way just to have a clever twist to fool everyone and have someone like Annette Bening play not only a villain in the movie, but also a hero.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess more like just taking it at face value. I didn't delve into it. Not that you're wrong, Mert. I don't disagree with that, but I didn't think of it quite that deeply.
Yeah, and I mean, I can see what you're saying about the male role model aspect, and I'm glad that Nick Fury was there to be that male role model, because I think in a lot of ways they learned from each other.
Absolutely,
you know, yeah. Carol learned from Nick and vice versa. And I think that sure, that could have happened if Mar-Vell was a male. But I can also understand why they decided to go this route, just because of, I guess maybe the motherly symbolism of, harboring the refugees and stuff like that. I guess this perhaps added to that a little bit more, and also I also wonder how the Supreme Intelligence would have been if they had stuck with the same idea of it being, a person that, matters to you the most, if the Supreme Intelligence was then a man. Just how different that would have come off.
Well, that's another thing, though. I mean, I think for me, the ideal way to play this whole situation would have been to keep the female Dr. Wendy Lawson and just have that be a different renegade Kree than Mar-Vell. Just let Jude Law be the male Mar-Vell the way we all thought he was.
Right.
Let Jan Rog be a completely different character.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, whichever female Kree scientist was masquerading as Wendy Lawson could still have been Carol Danvers' mentor and could have been her Supreme Intelligence avatar as well.
Fair enough.
No, that's my position. I see both sides, and I first of all, Mert, I think you're absolutely correct, because we can never separate the political culture of our time with films that are being made in that moment, right? So, many movies right now, some of them are great, some I think are not, but that's a trend we're seeing right now in film, in general. And sometimes I think it works really well. Other times I think it's totally forced and ham-handed. This movie, for me, because it was Annette Bening, because I'm such a huge fan of her work, I didn't mind at all, because I was happy to see her in that dual role. Although I think, Mert, I think what your alternate scenario, I think, is a very compelling one. You really could have had both characters, in that sense. But again, like I said before, what I did really like about it was how even though they flipped the gender, but they really kept the essence of who Mar-Vell is and why Mar-Vell was an exceptional Kree. Like, he was not a typical, he or she is not a typical Kree. Like, they transcended the the regimentation of that society, which is so intrinsic to that character. And then Carol Danvers, in her own way, continues that tradition. Even when she was brainwashed, she still was playfully insubordinate, and you could tell she was really, really of her own mind, even within the brainwashing that had been going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really dug Brie Larson in the role. I really thought she was exceptional.
I also like the way that she portrayed it and the way they wrote it, so that Nick Fury, who has a contingency plan and a thought for everything, needs her help, and she is there in a split second of when she can be to save him, and is so concerned about him, who she learned from just as much as he did, like you said before.
Yeah.
I liked how concerned she was when she showed up. Everyone's trying to ask her a question, and she's like, "Where's Fury?" That right now, that's all she needs to know is, where's Nick? Yep.
Yeah, and in a way, you could see that was the beginning of Carol, reclaiming and rediscovering her own humanity. Was going back for Nick. that was a very pivotal moment for me in this movie. Was when she decided to go back for him, because she could have easily just run off and left him behind, but that was completely against her own personality and her own character, and she went back. I'll also just to cap what Murd was saying is that I think that everything you were saying is valid, Murd, and I think that if this was a 3-hour movie, they would have been able to do it. It's just I think that with the time they had to work with supporting characters, you probably could only have Dr. Lawson / Marvell, male or female. I think that introducing a second Kree into the mix there means you've got another character you need to flesh out and more time in the movie to be taken towards that character. Yeah. And that wouldn't have exactly worked with the time frame that they had. But I completely understand what you're saying, though.
Yeah, well, point taken there too, Wayne, because, well, as I said a few minutes ago, they even with the Dr. Wendy Lawson female Marvell, they barely had any time to develop her.
Exactly. Yeah.
And for someone like me who didn't know a whole lot of the background, it just didn't seem the wrong way to go either.
Oh, yeah.
But I totally appreciate what you're saying, Murd. I don't know that I would have thought of it that way.
Yep. Let me also say that since Chris, you mentioned the de-aging a little earlier, I feel like we had the best and worst of both worlds here, because I was not nearly as sold as you were on the de-aging on Clark Gregg.
No, Furies was definitely better than Clark Gregg. I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But the only real time, and this was brought up, I'll give credit where credit is due. When I listened to, there was a Slash Filmcast episode on Captain Marvel that I listened to, and they mentioned that the one time you can really tell that Sam Jackson is 70 is when he's running, because he is running like a 70-year-old, and it shows. But every other moment there, You could 100% believe that.
Oh yeah,
that he is the age that he is, and I've seeing as many old movies from the 90s with Sam Jackson in it, they had so much reference material to work off of, and they executed it beautifully.
Yep.
Yeah,
I thought so too.
Yeah,
is he 70 years old?
He's 70 years old. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's aging like nobody else has ever aged. Yep.
And the question is, where is Nick Fury? He's in the Soul Gem. So,
next to you, Galactus. Okay.
I wonder if they'll establish in the next film, meaning Avengers, as a wayfarer in space, she must have heard of Thanos.
Oh, definitely.
I would think. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially since they're gonna have to explain where she was for the last 20 years. So if she hasn't heard of Thanos, then she's been running around with headphones on the entire time.
How do you like bringing Ronan back into the mix there?
Nice touch.
Yeah, I think it was nice to include him. I think he could have been anybody, but it was nice just to tie it into something that happens in the future from their perspective.
Yeah. As Shane said, he could have been anybody. I'm still waiting for Ronan to be given some kind of dimensionality, some kind of personality, maybe a little bit of backstory. But nope, he's basically just standing around being evil and menacing and blue.
Yeah.
And we had.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ian. I'm sorry.
I was going to say we also had Korath in this.
Yeah,
we did.
Talking about
liked
returns.
him a little bit more in this.
Yeah.
Is Korath a John Hansu character?
Yes.
So what I liked about that was when Yon-Rogg is talking to Ronan, Korath is about to agree with Ronan. Which is a nice, flashing forward to when he's serving Ronan in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep.
So
good point.
That was a nice little continuity touch there.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And I wanted to touch on Maria a little bit more, just because the performance out of Lashana Lynch was really, really well done.
Oh yeah,
their relationship, their friendship is very believable, and I think that considering the amount of time they had to work with this movie, because again it's 2 hours, they cemented that incredibly well, and you can see that there's a legitimate friendship there, and
absolutely,
her and Brie Larson played off each other excellently. And
they use flashbacks nicely, like when they're in her memories and she's, and doing in the bar with her, and
Doing
it
karaoke together.
was economic. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Anybody know what kind of feedback is this movie getting? Like, what's the the scuttlebutt?
So it depends on who you ask. Because, I mean, the Rotten Tomatoes score is 80%. So critics overall have enjoyed it. And most online reaction I'm seeing for those who I follow is along the same lines of how we feel, that it's a good movie. It's not top tier Marvel, but it's definitely middle tier Marvel. And most people appreciate that. There's the occasional not liking it, but that's bound to happen with anything.
Sure.
It's just I think overall the reviews have been overly positive, except for those who wanted this movie to crash and burn and are now seeing that didn't happen. But we're not any of those people, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
And I assume it did well financially its opening weekend?
Very much.
It's made $500 million.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. $500 million worldwide, I'll point out. The figures closer to home, I believe it was $150 million in domestic. So very good start, and it makes it, I think, the second most profitable before Infinity War, if I'm remembering that correctly, for opening weekend. Yeah. Seventh overall, I think.
I think people are so excited for Endgame. This is part of just the build-up. I mean, damn, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, definitely. So,
all right, I want to ask you guys how you took this, because I've had many people, not many, I've had a few people ask me this, and I can't believe they didn't take it the way I did.
Mm-hmm.
The cat was named Goose.
Yes.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
why do you think that was?
That's
what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had numerous people go, I couldn't figure that out. And I said, well, it's Top Gun. And they're like, oh, I didn't even think of that.
Because she was a pilot in the 1980s.
Yep.
So she would have seen Top Gun.
Yep.
Now the name of the cat in the comics is Chewie, and I can understand why they didn't go that route. Even if Spider-Man, knows that really old movie Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
To change the reference to Goose, I think made a lot more sense, and just the Flurgan in general was, it's such a good touch.
Is Chewie a Flurkin in the comics as well, or is he just a cat?
Yes, it is a Flurkin that they, I believe, while Carol was a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. She came across.
So this alien race is from the Marvel Universe. I wasn't sure about that.
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely part of her adventures, and a cat that shows up multiple times throughout the comics in one way or the other.
Now, not the hideous monster tentacles coming out part, but the cat itself is what my cat looked like growing up. His name was Mitten.
Well, I didn't think the tentacles part would be included for your cat. But
never know.
Fun fact, Brie Larson is allergic to cats.
Oh, get out.
Oh, wow.
That's funny.
Complicated things on the set a little bit.
I can imagine. Yeah, as someone who has a cat allergy, and depending on the cat, it's worse than other cats, I can feel her pain.
So I want to ask you, Jim, I already heard Murd's take. Ian and Shane, what did you think of how they portrayed the Skrulls in this film?
The same way you thought. I liked it. They visually were spectacular, but even through the discussion, we all kind of agreed that it'd be nice if they would differentiate this group as rebelling against their imperialist culture and have the Skrulls be more vicious elsewhere.
Yeah. And I think that similar to the Mandarin, we will get that course correct. I believe that they will cement that in further movies, if not a Disney Plus TV series. Like we're definitely going to get more of the Skrulls, and I guarantee you they're all not friendly and fuzzy. That.
Wait a minute, they're doing a new version of the Mandarin?
They did a new version of the Mandarin. It was never actually introduced. Like the person playing him was never actually introduced, but it's one of It was one of the Marvel shorts, Chris.
Yep.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This was was that
when what's his name went to jail?
Yes. That was that on Guardians of the Galaxy's?
It
Blu-ray?
might have been.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and find it
because it had to have been after Iron Man 3. So
yes.
But it was one of the Marvel
I have
one-shots.
the first Guardians DVD. It's on that.
I'm not sure. I'll have to look it up.
Okay, I had no idea. I'm clueless.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let me see. Mandarin one.
They do a good job. It's from Iron Man 2. What's his name that goes to jail?
Iron Man 2 was Justin Hammer.
Yes, Justin Hammer's there in jail. Yep. Yeah. When Hammer is there in jail with Ben Kingsley's character Trevor Slattery. So that's what it was. It was on the home release for Thor: Dark World.
Okay, I have that. All right, I'll have to check that out.
Yep, it's a Marvel one shot. It was the last one they produced, actually. The last Marvel one shot.
I was wondering if it was because I haven't seen hide nor hair of any since then.
Yep. Yeah.
Interesting. So they actually show the actual Mandarin then?
No, but
okay. But they mention.
Yes, they mentioned that there's an actual one out there somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because one of the exciting aspects of the first Iron Man film was they mentioned the 10 rings, like, they're going to bring the Mandarin into this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I thought the way they used Ben Kingsley was brilliant and hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
In the third film, but
essentially they have somebody come in and quote unquote interview Trevor Slattery, and then it turns out to be a member of the 10 Rings. So that's what that whole situation is.
And then Justin Hammer from the second one's in the background in the prison as well.
Yeah. So it's a nice touch.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep.
I kind of hope that at the end of Endgame, one of the possible trailer sequences, I have a couple in my head.
Mm-hmm.
One of them would be that once everybody's back, whoever's going to be back, you still have the devastation of whatever happened in places from all the destruction. And one of my things to see to help push along and usher in the next phase would be whoever Tony sold Avengers Tower to, which I'm hoping would be Reed Richards,
Fantastic Four,
is helping to clean up New York.
Yeah.
Not as the Fantastic Four yet, just as Reed Richards helping do something. Or the other thing I thought was that some of the Avengers that survive, if whoever survives, we find out that one of them is a Skrull that is not so nice, and usher in a Secret War thing going to happen in a few movies.
Well, Shane, I concur, because what I'm hoping the way they use the Skrulls in the film, I enjoyed it, but I'm also thinking, all right, but one of the great plot devices is the Skrulls infiltrate society.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's a take on the Red Scare, and people are paranoid, you don't know who to trust, and they could do a lot with that.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping, like you said, that's just a faction.
And I think do it a little bit better than what the comics ended up doing it, because I was disappointed with that story that it didn't have more lasting ramifications.
Well, on the bright side, you talking about that, Shane, news came out 5 hours ago on CNN.com that the Fox takeover will take effect on March 20th.
Okay.
Which gives them just about enough time to last-minute film something if they want to include the Fantastic Four in one way or the other.
Yeah.
I don't know if they will, but it is certainly a possibility. You never know.
Well, as I've said before, I'm still waiting for Dr. Doom to be done justice, which has never been done in film.
Yep.
Agreed.
And I'm waiting for them to establish that he is the preeminent villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as he should be.
Definitely.
And I really hope – and boy, they got to get the right actor for that part. Because it can easily descend into silliness unless they have just the right actor to play that role.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that now that they got all this licensing nonsense straightened out, that the first family will get their due. So
agreed.
Bringing it back to the movie for a second,
please.
What did you guys think of the use of the Tesseract?
I was surprised. I didn't expect to see that as the power source. I don't know why. It just I guess it just didn't enter my mind as a possibility. I was just thinking it was a power source that she had from something else.
Yeah, it didn't quite click for me that would be the source of Carol Danvers' particular power set. I mean, because the Tesseract is the space gem.
Right.
So you'd think that being irradiated by that would give her the power to do very little more than teleport or fold space, but her power set is much more inclusive than that. Mm-hmm. Would have been better if, I don't know which of the various MacGuffins from the other Marvel movies is supposed to be the power gem, but that really should have been what Dr. Lawson was using for her Lightspeed engine, and that should have been what irradiated Carol. But in any case, it was funny to see the cat barf it up in the end.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking that by using, I have to call it the Cosmic Cube because it's just because it's about me. But because they use the Cosmic Cube, that may play a key role in Carol's ability to deal with Thanos. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Shane. Sorry.
Well, and we know that Cosmic Cube has given powers to others because of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and we know it can do other things because it's partially under Loki's control with what he does with it. I mean, it seems to have more abilities than just what normally you would think of as the Cosmic Cube.
Right.
Which I don't disagree with. I think using one of the other ones to be the power gem or something like that would have made more sense because, again, you're right. It seems a little silly to use this to give somebody that much power, but...
Well, I'm looking at the first off, it's the Space Stone in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I guess that does make sense, at least for her ability to fly and those powers. However, it would have been fascinating had they used the Power Stone because as you brought up, Murd, you were wondering where that took place. That was what Ronan was looking for in Guardians of the Galaxy. So that would have brought a very interesting wrinkle into things if that was, added to why Ronan would be trying to get the girl, at the end of this movie so much.
Right. Could have been how he learned about the existence of the power gem or stone in the first place.
You're right. Yeah. Very interesting wrinkle. Sense. Yep. Yeah.
And the only thing it wouldn't have done was give Fury the Cosmic Cube, which we know he has at the end of whatever, Thor or Avengers or something.
Right. Specifically in Project Pegasus, which is exactly where it was in Avengers.
And it was great to see. It was great to see Project Pegasus that they used that name. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yep, that was a fun inside nod. I think so too, Chris. It actually makes a little more sense for like an Air Force NASA collaboration than it does for the alternate energy compound that it applies to in the comics.
Yeah. And they had to have used some of the same sets because I know that they filmed a little bit in Vancouver. They had to have used some of the same sets that Stargate used to use. For some of those scenes at Pegasus because those corridors look straight out of Stargate SG-1 and it just made me very, very happy that way.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Huge Stargate nerd here, so it wet my whistle.
One of my favorite phrases.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in Ian Levinstein.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is just how well of the girl power moments in this, because there were multiple, the two that worked best for me were the Supreme Intelligence attempting to use her falling down to try and psych Carol out, and Carol turning that around into, giving the Supreme Intelligence the comeuppance and breaking free of the control and becoming the truly powerful being that she always was. That was great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I like that in particular because that's the first thing that was released in any kind of teaser was her falling down.
Yep. Yeah.
Although I found it amusing that as she's clearly becoming incredibly empowered, when she's linked into the Supreme Intelligence, all the Kree warriors are kind of standing around and like, oh, what's going on here? I'm like, why aren't you people running yet? I mean, for God's sake, look what's happening. I mean, Jesus.
Seriously.
Look at those bright lights.
Apparently, they've never watched any of the movies that were in that Blockbuster video that Carol crashed into.
Speaking of that, I just saw a news report just before I came down here about the last Blockbuster video in Oregon.
Yep.
There was only one, and I saw that the day before on Friday before I saw the movie.
Yep, they're closing the one in Australia that was number 2. So yep, that's just going to be one left, and somehow I blame Carol. I don't know how.
So what was the other girl power moment that worked best for you, Ian?
The other girl power moment was when facing off against Jan Rog, where Jan Rog attempts to just go fisticuffs with her.
And she pulls an Indiana Jones and just shoots him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And essentially saying the words, I have nothing to prove to you.
Yep.
That was excellent.
I almost expected her to.
Sir.
I almost expected her when she was doing that. She had a look on her face like, "Oh, come on, really? You expect me to do this?" I almost wanted her to cross her arms, put out her one foot, cock her head, and then go boom and just blast him that way, which was sort of what we got, but just a little bit more obnoxious about it would have been good.
Yeah.
Well, and not only that, like I said before, I mean, it was a great scene, but I found it hilarious that after everything that just occurred, you're going to try to get involved in fisticuffs with her. Like it was hilarious. Again, the arrogance, and if you go into the comic, like Jan Rog is this insanely jealous Kree officer who's obsessing about Mar-Vell's first love, Una. Who was also a Kree. This is back in the Silver Age stories.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they obviously didn't go into any of that, but I'm pleased they had a version of Jan Rog in the film. I thought, all right, he's not Mar-Vell, but it's cool that he's Jan Rog. So
now, during the movie, didn't he say that when he sees the Supreme Intelligence, he sees Carol? Or am I making
I don't
that
remember
up in my
that.
head?
I'm sorry, I don't remember that.
Carol insinuated that. He never actually said who he sees, because Carol asked, she's basically noodling him about it. And and first he says, do you see your brother? No. Do you see your mother? Oh, I bet you see me. And then he never actually says yes or no.
Yeah, he changed the subject then. Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It's good to have just seen it 20 minutes before we started recording. Everything's nice and fresh in my head.
Because certain things I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure he said that. No, he didn't. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So what do we think of the two post-credit scenes?
So number one is a Ant-Man level post-credit scene, because it's clearly just a scene from Endgame.
Yeah,
which has been repurposed.
Yeah,
which I'm perfectly okay with, because hey, we got to see a scene from Endgame.
Right.
And then the second one was just silly, but cute.
Now, of all the silly ones that mean absolutely nothing, this was the best one for me. Like, I really didn't like Captain America standing there at the end of whatever it was, Spider-Man, going, sometimes you wait and you wait and you wait, or whatever it was. And I was like, it's all right. But of all the nonsense ones, this one was my favorite.
Better than the Avengers eating shawarma?
Yeah, that one was neat when they did it, but now I'm kind of over that one.
I don't know, Shane. I'm kind of a fan of Cap in the detention videos for high school students. That was a.
I like the videos during the movie. I think they work well, but just the extra one, kind of thumbing their nose at us who are waiting for another scene. I was like, oh, all right.
I want us all to think for a minute how many special effects people it took to simulate a cat coughing up a hairball. Let's just think about that for a minute.
I'm just glad he didn't regurgitate those Kree soldiers that he consumed.
That's what I thought was coming next. I thought there was going to be a hand or an arm or something.
I was expecting that too.
There's an extended version of that scene out somewhere where that's exactly what happened.
And then to take that further, I thought Coulson was going to walk in and go, uh-oh.
Yeah. And since we did mention that, I'm sorry. Nick losing the eye that way, just it rubs me the wrong way, especially with factoring in Winter Soldier specifically. Yeah. And the speech he gave about how the last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye. You're telling me
that's right.
He was talking about an alien cat.
Exactly. Yeah,
well, and really the last time he trusted anyone would have been Carol or Coulson.
Sure.
And the cat. So, yeah, I agree. I really thought that when he got scratched, it was just going to be the scars and the eye would come later.
Yeah. So, I
thought he'd make some offhanded comment like, "Oh, that was a close one, but my eye's still here" or something. I don't know. I expected another joke out of it, and to have him be fine, just scarred.
Which they did the first time, Shane. I mean, they made the same joke twice.
Yeah.
How's that eye doing? Oh, it's actually doing pretty well. Like, that's...
I'm like, okay, he didn't lose it. And all of a sudden he's got the patch. I'm like, okay.
So how many special thanks did you guys catch? Because I tried to... it always goes by too fast for me, but I saw a decent amount of comic creators listed there.
Pretty much virtually everyone who's been involved with the various versions of the character was on the screen. What I found very interesting, though, they did not note the actual creators of Marvel or Carol Danvers.
Really?
No.
Huh.
They just, unless I missed it, but I was looking for it, they just listed all the people who were involved in crafting these stories over the years, which of course is a lengthy list. But I didn't Marvel is Stan Lee and Gene Colan.
Well, thanks to Stan was all over the movie.
True.
Yeah.
And is Carol Danvers Jerry Conway?
I thought it was Roy Thomas, and his name was definitely in there.
No, I'm sorry, you're right. It is.
Yeah.
No, wait. Actually, let me jump back. I'm misspeaking here. Carol Danvers was first introduced just as an Air Force officer in the Lee Colan stories.
Ah, okay.
And then later on, when she's empowered as Miss Marvel, I want to say Jerry Conway wrote that first story, but I could be wrong about that.
Well, one of my favorite back and forths on Twitter was Gary Frank saying, it was great to see my name in the Captain Marvel credits, but can anyone tell me why? and I believe it was I think he co-created a character with Mark Waid that was in this movie. If memory serves,
one of the Kree Star Force, possibly.
I think so. Yeah.
And by the way, I misspoke, gentlemen. It was Roy Thomas who created Carol Danvers. I think Stan Lee was just editing that issue, Marvel Superheroes 13.
Got it.
So it's Roy Thomas and Gene Colan did Carol Danvers, but Lee and Colan did Marvel. So that was my mistake.
Yeah. So that's because I even saw Steve McNiven's name in the credits as a special thanks. And Peter David was listed, which made me happy. Just
as he should be.
Yeah.
See, this time I missed all those. I was talking to my boys about the movie, and normally I do read almost everything through the credits as much as I can, but I completely missed the special thanks in this one.
Yeah.
So what was your boys' opinion of the movie then, Shane?
Oh, they liked it. Ben, I think, didn't appreciate all of the musical beats, not knowing the 80s as much as, the 90s as much as what I do.
Mm-hmm.
They know a lot more 80s songs because I play more 80s than 90s in the car, in the house, whatever.
Right.
So they were like, well, the songs were kind of weird. And I'm like, well, they actually did pretty good on most of them, I thought. But again, they don't know that part, not like the 80s, not even like the 70s, because they jumped all over the soundtracks of both Guardians of the Galaxy movies. But yeah, this one they were just like, oh, okay. But I think overall they liked the movie. I think Matt had the same opinion as he did with some of the Aquaman movie, where some of it was too slow for him and it was a little bit boring. Some of the exposition, it wasn't bad. He was just like, I was ready for some more action.
Well, Shane, I look forward to in maybe another year or two, you just sitting down at the kitchen table with your boys and being like, well, this is called grunge.
In a few more years, his boys won't want to be anywhere near him in public.
That's true. Good point. Oh, and the joke about flannel in the movie also just absolutely. I started cracking up hysterically. Like,
when I went to see it, what the audience really got a kick out of was like the dial-up and the trying to load things on the computers.
Yep.
And that's the load on the computer. I didn't have a lot of people laughing at that, and yet I thought that was hysterical.
Yeah, I had pretty much everybody around me cracking up. I went to see it the first time with a bunch of friends, and we all enjoyed it. My girlfriend enjoyed it, and this last time was just me. But everyone surrounding me was all laughing at the right beats, so that was good.
I wonder if when they were filming it or writing it, they're like, God, how do we slow it down this much now? We have to figure out some effect that takes it too long, because nothing takes that long anymore.
Any other thoughts, gentlemen?
Merge, you got anything else?
No, I think we covered all the beats I wanted to hit.
All right, Shane?
No, I think it was good. A good discussion. We hit everything and discussed and gave me, as always, more thoughts to ponder for the next time I see it.
So how many frecking swears does this one get, gentlemen?
Go ahead, Shane.
I'd still give it a 4. I still enjoyed the hell out of it the first time I saw it.
Mert?
Yeah, I'll give it 3.5 and call it a day.
I'm going to give it a very strong 3.5.
Yeah, I'm like halfway between 3.5 and a 4, so like 3.75.
That is permissible. Any decimal fraction you want to assign it, Ian, it's fair game.
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely exactly mid-tier Marvel for me. Like if I eventually do a rank of everything, it'll be right there, right around where the other origin movies were, other than Iron Man, which is still like in my top 5, if not my number 1.
Yeah,
just
Iron Man's still in my top 5.
Well,
too.
yeah. I mean, I was thinking about Iron Man today as I was just preparing for this review, and I was like, that movie as an origin of a Marvel character, it's so pitch perfect, that film.
Yeah.
And again, you have to go back to the performance of Robert Downey Jr. Because I remember when I saw the movie for the first time, the minute he started talking, I was like, oh, they have it. Like, wow, this is amazing.
Yep.
And boy, it just went from there.
And I think that came at such a perfect time to restart his career as well for everything that he had been through in previous years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, he says, I mean, I've heard him interviewed where he just raves about the opportunity he was given to play Iron Man, basically. Yeah. So
if we don't get back and forth, like witty banter between Brie and Robert Downey, that's going to be a missed opportunity. Because
that's essential. Absolutely essential.
Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she's shown the actress can definitely, dish that out. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I really liked her.
I thought she was great.
Can we mention the fact that she could vaporize Tony Stark with a gesture?
Yeah.
And I love as I wish I could be in one of these theaters when it happens somewhere, but there's no way I'd be in the right place. I love that she went somewhere and was serving popcorn at the concession stand.
It was New Jersey, Shane. It was New Jersey.
Was it in Jersey? It was in Jersey. Oh wow, I didn't think it was that close.
Mm-hmm.
Wait,
and then went in.
She did that?
Yep.
Yeah. She was in like a jogging suit of Captain Marvel uniform, and was serving stuff from the refreshment stand to guests coming in, and then hopped inside of one of the theaters and welcomed everybody and thanks for coming to see the movie.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was neat. I mean, I love when they do that. Just like I like when oh gosh, when Johnny Depp dressed up as Captain Jack and was in the ride out in California,
right?
As people went by. I mean, I like that stuff. I know that these people get paid an astronomical amount of money and they're idolized in some ways more than they probably should be, but I still like that kind of stuff. I love whenever I get to see that Cap and Star-Lord, Chris Evans and Chris Pratt go to the children's hospitals and portray characters, or they had the kid who played Spider-Man went and did it one time. Like, I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The world's so bad off as a whole in this day and age that I love those kind of sappy, heartwarming stories.
Shane, I concur wholeheartedly because they're human moments where these. You're right. We put these celebrities on these ridiculous pedestals. And it's nice when you see ones who are humble and who recognize the source of their success, besides their own talents, is the people who are coming to see what they're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
It was the AMC Clifton Commons 16 in Clifton, New Jersey.
Oh wow!
Yep. Yeah, and she said that to the crowd that she went to intro the movie to, she said, I had to stop by because I heard my face was on the cups.
That's right.
And I should do a little shout out. Clifton is the home of my friend John Paul's at JerseyComicBookShows.com. He's running a show in the Clifton Community Center for over 20 years.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So I've got a couple of shout outs before we wrap up, gentlemen, if you don't mind.
Please.
Okay.
So we've got 2 Kickstarter campaigns that I want to pimp. One, our good friend Mr. Raphael Suhu is involved with. He has there's a new anthology out that he did a 5-page story for, which is now attempting to get its Kickstarter money. And looking up the name, it's called Masked Prejudice, a superhero anthology for social justice. And that's on Kickstarter right now. So once again, that's masked. I'm having trouble saying the word masked. Prejudice, a superhero anthology for social justice. That is on Kickstarter this very moment. And it has, as we're recording this, 25 more days to go. So if you want to go ahead and put your money towards that, that would be a good reason. And also, of course, White by Jamal Igle is on Kickstarter, the sequel to Black, which we've mentioned previously. Go ahead and check that out on Kickstarter when you get a chance. And if you want to hear further comments, once again, on Captain Marvel, check out Comic Timing at comictiming.net for a very, very different episode about Captain Marvel than what you just heard, to say the least. So, well-rounded Ian on all fronts.
All right, gentlemen. Outstanding as always.
All right,
Cool.
Shane, you ready to wrap it up?
Yep. Visit us at comicgeekspeak.com to send us an email. The address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. To leave a voicemail, the number is 267-702-6642. Stop by thecomicforums.vanillacommunity.com. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Yay! And comment on this episode and let us know what you all thought of Captain Marvel. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. Thanks to everyone who contributes to the episodes, the shows, sends stuff in, as well as Muddle the Merds. We appreciate it, and it's a hoot and a half when it happens. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.